there are more than two people. So, including two people, that means even husband and wife, any organization on this earth, number one challenge, I mean, of course including any businesses, if you're not doing it alone, all agree that major challenge in any organization, more than two, including two, is communication. So, to be a leader, we have to constantly improve our communication. It's not something we learn tonight and all of a sudden we will be like, you know, our communication will become 0 to 1, like digital. No, we have to learn tonight what kind of things we have to learn, what kind of things we have to pay attention, and we have to build daily learning curve to improve our communication. And it's a lifetime project. I mean, even in, still, I mean, you know, I'm improving, and often the number one condition to be a successful CEO, the top 5 conditions to be a successful CEO is a skillful communicator, according to Jack Welch. So improving communication is a lifetime challenge and a task, and we can never stop. Besides, the world is changing so fast, and they are mobile. So they are moving around, people are moving around, and depending on their background, and depending on their generations, different generations, we really have to improve our communication skill. So, let's, you know, we will understand, trying to learn what is important, what is the effective way to communicate, and what do we have to do to learn listen aggressively and observe aggressively. Well, there was some crazy emperor in Rome, and he says, hey, you can feed a baby whatever you want, but never talk to a baby. Don't talk. Do not make any sound in front of baby. And then this emperor thought maybe they will speak automatically the language they used in the Garden of Eden. Well, the result was everyone died. Poor babies. I'm glad we don't live that kind of era. That means even though they do not understand, if mama doesn't talk to the baby, baby will die. That's how the human beings and the created ones, including animals, God created us to communicate. And without communications, it's very difficult to survive. I remember there was a movie that was Federal Express pilot, and he was delivering Federal Express through the plane into the remote island. Anyone saw that movie?
Castaway.
Yeah, he landed in some through the storms. He landed in some island that he could not be. I mean, he lived there a couple of years, many years, all by himself. And the movie shows. The movie shows, meaning that we lost our internet. No, we didn't. Okay. Simply, the computer is acting up. You could see in the movie, he finally got some big fruit and draw the human face and put it up next to where his living quarters, and he's talking to it all the time. Say, hey, good morning. He was talking to, and that's how he survived. First story, when he got back, his wife thought he was dead, and she got married anyway. Communication, there is always a speaker, content, what to communicate, and listener. So at every moment, often the two people, they play vice versa. Who is a speaker, who is a listener? But always there are three ingredients. What it shows is, here let's get a top down. Speaker, when we speak, we should have a respect of the listener and love toward that person. And if we do not, then somehow it's misinterpreted, or the communication is not effective. And of course there's a content. Content includes some information, and also content includes emotions. And listener has to listen with respect. Often, you could notice that people do not respect the speaker, then even they stop, or they don't pay attention, and there's so many things. Winston Churchill was a prime minister in England in the critical times during the World War II. He was known to be a good communicator, and he's effective. His communication, the style was very effective under the worst situation in England history. I guess they were going to be invaded by Napoleon, which they think the Nelson saved it. But the worst case was when these Nazis just swamped the whole Europe in such a short time, and England was going to surrender. So even politically, was a very bad situation. And he wanted to fight, but at the same time, he was a very direct and straight talk with his people and to the parliament. After the 9/11, I forgot the New York mayor's name. Giuliani? Giuliani. That sounds mafia, but he's Italian. Good mayor. He studied at Churchill how to communicate to the New Yorkers, the worst period of New Yorkers in the New York history, and in a really bad situation. So he learned the Churchill's technique, and he really did help the New Yorkers to come back and thrive again. He said he didn't hide anything. He said we have to fight. We have to fight to get to keep the freedom, but at the same time, I'm not going to hide. We have to offer a lot of blood, toil, tears, and sweat. And he just talked about the bottom line. And we have to fight to death. But God help us, and he was a straight talker, and that was historically known. In the worst situation, he never hid anything. He just had a straight talk, and it was very effective. The whole parliament turned around, and they said, all right, let's not surrender and let's fight Nazis. Okay, simple communication, rights and responsibilities, they are kind of go in pairs, hand in hand. Of course, rights, when we communicate to other people, need to be treated with respect, and at the same time we have the freedom to express ourselves, and also just communicate what we need and also just set a reasonable limit. Reasonable limit in communication means, you know, you need a privacy boundary. I mean, you know, if somebody asks you how many times you go pee every day, then unless that person is a doctor, you said, hey, that's none of your business. That's kind of private limit. There are many other things as a private limit. At the same time, in the responsibilities, is the other way too. Exactly. We have to respect the other person and listen to the opinion, because the other person has the right to express their opinion, and also acknowledge their need. At the same time, respect not to go over the boundary of one's privacy. Well, what do we use to communicate? And we said, you know, we said words, but words are not just, it's not the written words, especially when we talk, it's not just words alone. Actual language, the words, they said only it transfers the actual information and the emotions, only 4% of it. And tone as 18% of reality in the real situation. And facial expression as 22%, body language as 56%. So the key discovery is a body language. So you can say, if you cannot hear, then you do not have a 22% on the top. But still you should be able to read what 78% of what's going on. And actually, skillful communicator does that. They have techniques to really watch other people, which we'll later go over. They observe aggressively, and they don't have to say anything. You can tell. You should be able to read about 80% of what's in their mind. That's what the salespeople do. Unless you can read your customer's mind, you can never be successful. So one of the key things is do not rely on words and do not be fooled by words. Now, often the words is speeded out. I mean, you know, even when the husband and wife fight, you know, they listen to the words, and if they remember that forever, probably they will end up divorcing. But they know that was just temporary. But even they were serious, still the sound, the words and the tone only shows you 22%. You don't know in detail. You're missing 78% if you rely on their words. So you got to learn, and you got to develop to read the body language and the facial expression. Nowadays, it's more difficult because of the different, you know, people with a different cultural background and different generation, because, you know, one generation has a different expression, while, you know, for example, you know, often in Asia, while they're in a, let's say in a social meeting, if they're, you know, just social party or whatever, if they don't smile, it's interpreted maybe that person is not happy or something wrong with that person. That's in Asia. They're supposed to be happy, then they're supposed to smile, but not the Americans. Americans, even though they're happy, they are not supposed to smile unless there was something funny. And if constantly show smile face, then they suspect something. That person is something wrong with him. Asians really don't understand what it means. Well, there was a reason why Now, to let you understand why, probably 100 years ago, this Chinese came to study in American campus and working hard in the cafeteria to make money, to go to school, and these Americans keep teasing him and mocking him and keep calling him Chinese, Chinese, Chinese. That's why if they call it out loud, the Chinese, that's like a curse, or it's bad words. But this guy, Chinese, was smiling all the time. So finally, at the end of the semester, these 4 guys, Caucasian, they says, well, we feel sorry, he's smiling all the time, and we keep mocking him, and we are bad, we better just tell him, we are sorry and wish him to that. So near the end of the semester, the guy says, hey, we've been, mocking you, and we feel sorry, we will not do that again. And the smiling Chinese then just, said, who was working in cafeteria, says, oh, is that so? That's fine. Okay, then from now on, I will not pee on your soup. So Americans especially, they watch Asians just smile without any discussion, any talking and standing still, but they just smile. They get suspicious. Actually, in our weekly Rotary Club, we stand in line to get the food, and often while we are standing in line, we talk to each other, but often it's difficult to have a conversation. You have to constantly move, but I guess Asian habit, I was keep smiling, and one of my very close American friends finally came to me and says, Daniel, while you're standing in the line, don't smile. They become suspicious of you. So I tell them, well, they're suspicious because I may pee on their soup, and he was laughing. But those are the challenges that we have to understand the cultural background. So, we cannot go over every detail, and every detail you try to read a book that's already old and it's not accurate, because the world is changing so fast. Even right now, in the world population, about 30% are immigrants. Can you believe that? 30% in the world population is immigrants. They leave, they move to the different countries. And like Portugal, they have a problem because the people are leaving their country. Many European countries, and then they had to receive the immigrants from Africa or Middle East. So Europe is really getting, worse situation. Anyway, back to our communication tools. We got to understand the facial expression, and especially body expression, which shows 50% of the truth. We better learn how to read it, but at the same time, it's vice versa. We got to learn how to make a right body language and right facial expression, depending on the cultural background of the listener. I talked to the Syrian. He's from Middle East, Arabian. I mean, he came from Syria. He said his father is still big shot in Syria. I don't know whether the second man in the Syrian, CIA or whatever. It sounded like that. But when we are talking, man, his face is right over here. And he's talking to me. And I keep moving. I said, no, wait a minute, I better stop. If I keep moving, he will get offended. But he's talking to me right here. And he expects me to go talk to him like that. And that's Middle Eastern. If you want to be friends, you do that. If you want to be enemies, you get away. And especially you spit each other on their faces. Then they feel, you get the spit on your face, then they feel, oh, he's my friend, or I'm his friend. Okay, this chart is very important tonight. I want you to remember just roughly 80%. Body language and facial expression consist of 80% of truth. you're speaking. This chart is literally regardless of the, there may be little variation, but regardless of the cultural background or different generations. Only challenge is how do you interpret, In communication, okay, from now on, well, we did that in the, every subject, like tonight is communication, then we will have, so many, not many guns, but about 4 or 5 guns. So it's better that you remember those guns under the subject title, so that it's easier to apply, not just making 50 guns or trying to remember everything. So under the communication, gun number 1, I bless the listeners and regard him better than me. That's biblical in the Philippians chapter 2, verse 2-3. So let's get the 1 out and says, I bless the listeners and regard him better than me.
I bless the listeners and regard him better than me.
2 more times.
I bless the listeners and regard him better than me. I bless the listeners and regard him better than me.
So when we speak spiritually, we have a mindset of blessing the listeners and appreciate, give thanks, and love. I know once in a while I get agitated or I lost, my focus on Jesus is lost. Then I have to really give thanks quickly to get back. Also at the same time repent and get back to Jesus, and to start bless that person. And today somebody texted me and said, I want to talk to you. And the problem is, I don't know who that person is. So I said, please could you tell me your background and which church do you go to, if it is GMI, which group, and whatever. And she turns out whom I knew. She was coming to KPM, but she used a totally different name. Anyway, so I said, what's the issue? Well, just text me. Because you better understand, man only use 10,000 words a day when they're active, when they're young and active. But as they get old, the number is reducing. I watch my mentor, David Kim, he's using less than 1,000 words per day. I don't know whether you watch that in the cruise or not. But I watched him. Whenever he's so tired, even though somebody asked him questions, he pretend that he didn't listen. He didn't listen to the question. He just sat quiet, reserve his energy. So that's another tip. You need to deal with older people. Say something and wait until they build up their energy to speak to you. It's a challenge, but you need to be able to deal with every different generation. So anyway, I said, what's the problem? I said, well, she didn't get paid and she's suing through the Labor Department. And I told her immediately stop. You bless the previous employer and expect a reward from God, but don't pursue it. And she was very obedient. And I explained to her. I gave her the biblical Bible verses. Never, if all possible, when you are sued, then you have to defend it, I guess. But all possible, never go to that. And the Bible says, why you go to the non-believer's court? Can't you resolve it? And even you better just, get the damage and get the reward from God. Anyway, spiritually we have to bless and thanks and love often there was a period in my life I kept praying to God just many times a day. I said, Lord, if I'm not full of your love in me, let me not open my mouth. Let me not open my mouth. Because as a CEO of a very high-tech company, I saw the damage. Whenever I opened my mouth, when I was not full of love, I was damaging people. And still, I continue that prayer. At the soul level, never feel you are better than, make sure the listener is better than you. And at the same time, it's learning mode, trying to learn about the listener. Not in the arrogant mindset of a teaching mode. I have seen some people, some leaders, even in the KPM or at the church, the layman leaders, they're all in the teaching mode. And they never try to learn. That's why they do not grow. Whenever they are stuck spiritually and even mentally, they just, even Bible says, don't try to be a teacher. Of course, sound, we have to use proper language, tone, and learn to make a proper facial expression. Often, higher you go, meaning that you're more influential you are, you got to learn to make a generous, smiling facial expression. Isabel, did you go to the Tristias? No. The EMS Tristias, find the time to go there.
I will make sure that I attend to the one that I believe it's in November.
Does
Before
it?
the end of the year, there's one more. I'm sure. So
All right.
I'll schedule myself to attend to that.
Well, what I'm saying, I guess it's not going to hurt you. Often, even at the Tristias, I guess my facial expression is so stern and so serious. So I had one of my team member in the back says, whenever you feel I'm too serious, then keep saying in the back, so let me smile. It helped me. Of course, we talked about not enough, but body language. We need to learn to make a proper body language. When I was a CEO, when I talked to my employee, I made a gentle touch. That's like a care and love for them, and they felt really good. Of course, nowadays you have to be careful if that's a female. But even, even male to male, when you say something, says, there are many different, body language, depending on the situation, depending on your position, depending on the listener. Well, this is general people in America. Let's say, what percentage do they use in speaking? About 20%. Then what percentage they use in listening? 40%. But people are least trained about listening. That's the problem. And they watch 20 to 30%, it depends on TV and the SNS. Now probably there may be more. They constantly look. I mean, it's funny, it gets so worse. I forgot which book. The World is Flat or something. I don't know whether it was that book or even, no. Probably some other book more recent. He went to some meeting in Paris. All the business people came and there was dinner meeting. And he thought the conversation would go on. But there was a very small conversation and everyone was doing something while they were eating. Then looking at, and it was known. They was accepting each other. While other reading and writing, about 10 to 20%. workers, working day, about 45% they have to listen to other people, 45% of their time at work, but least trained. Also speaking is next, about 30%, but least trained. They were not trained at school. How many regular, I graded, even I went to school 12 plus 5, so I went to formal school, no, including MBA, about 18 years. They never taught us formally how to speak and how to listen. That's really funny. And they expect the people to get a good job and do well in society. They teach how to read and how to write. Okay, let's have a short break and come back in about 10 minutes.